Women can vote, women can own property, women can divorce their husbands, walk into a courtroom, and be heard. On paper, it seems that all work has been done and the battle for gender equality has been won. Or is that really the case? Reforming the law doesn't automatically reform the system, because the system doesn't need to control your vote if it can control how you think.
The Western patriarchy.
Repulsive double standards when it comes to misogyny and sexism.
We literally live in a patriarchy.
Sylvia Welby in 1989 defined the patriarchy as a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate, oppress, and exploit women. The words dominate, oppress, and exploit are very strong words, and the first image that appears in your head is probably this. Which is absurd because in the 21st century, we're told that women can be strong, independent, disgustingly educated, and extremely pretty. I'm not denying that women can be all of these things, but let's just acknowledge that it's hard. And it's hard because of the patriarchy. What I mean by domination, oppression, and exploitation is largely metaphorical, and let's keep this in mind and have a conversation about the patriarchy. The UN has accepted that the minimum proportion of women representatives necessary for a legislature to be representative of women is 30%. This is the critical mass for them to make a difference to outputs, practices, and culture, and ensure that the representation of women is normalized and will continue. Note that 30% here is not some revolutionary figure that will overthrow the entire system and put us into some kind of anarchy state. It's just the bare minimum for a system to stop being unfair. However, in both politics and public life, women have historically been underrepresented. In the UK, no women were allowed to vote in parliamentary elections before 1918. The situation has much improved in recent years. Women are now legally entitled to vote and become politicians, but the problem is not completely resolved. According to figures provided by UN Women, as of the 1st of January 2026, among all the countries in the world, only 28 countries have women serve as head of state and/or head of government. At the current rate, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be reached for another 130 years. In the national parliament level, only 7 countries have 50% or more women in single or lower houses. And the countries on the list, or not on the list, will surprise you. At the current rate of progress, gender parity in national legislative bodies will not be achieved before 2063. The reason is that there's many cultural and social barriers for women to succeed in politics. First, they have fewer of the resources needed to enter into politics. Economically, they are less well off compared to their male colleagues, which deters them from doing activism which are not well paid or not paid at all. Socially, they may not have as many ties and social connections with members in the senior positions compared to their male colleagues. Second, various lifestyle constraints mean women have less time for politics. Family and other caring responsibilities are typically undertaken by women, reducing the time available for work. Third, the men who established the system have evolved the political style, and it acts to exclude all outsiders, making them feel uncomfortable and unwelcome. It's not difficult to see how these constraints inhibit women who might otherwise come forward. Outside of politics, let's just take ordinary education for example. Women were systematically denied equal access to education until mid to late 19th century. And even when women were allowed to study, their academic achievements were not formally recognized. It's not until 1878 that the University of London became the first in the UK to award degrees to women on the exact same terms as men. In 1975, the Sex Discrimination Act officially outlawed discrimination against women in education and training, forcing institutions to end quotas and unequal enrollment policies. It seems that now, women are formally placed in an equal position to men. But there's still a gap in reflecting this equality in substantial terms. Women remain a minority in engineering, computer science, physics, and university leadership. While some may argue that this is because women are less capable in these fields, I'm not very convinced by this argument. I don't think that women are born to be inferior to men in STEM. They are just not given the same resources to excel in it. Even if we take STEM out of the picture and take law, for example, men are still overrepresented in more senior positions, and this is because of the historical barriers for women to be in powerful positions. A lot of work needs to undo this injustice, not just declaring equality in the legal form, but we also need to change the societal attitudes underlying it. At least for now, the atrocities of the past are not fully redeemed. As I study law, I've come to realize that the law is not impartial as we'd like to think it is. The law judges conduct against the standards of a reasonable person. However, what is the reasonable person? Since women's voices had always been silenced, the system had already normalized the oppression of women to some extent. The reasonable person is, in actual terms, the reasonable man, and that would negatively harm women's rights in trial, especially in rape cases, which puts the victim on trial, questioning if they made their lack of consent clear and vocal enough to the other party. Social norms can be understood as what most people think and do, or alternatively, what individuals believe most people think and do. As such, social norms are about what's considered normal or ought to be normal in a given context. Social norms exert influence on people's attitudes and behavior. This influence is strongest when the individual is uncertain about the right way to think or act. Although the norm is that we should treat men and women equally, some underlying and unspoken prejudices and discrimination still exist. In the past, directors of films and stories were men, and movies were made for men's consumption. Therefore, the media was created around a male viewpoint, positioning women as passive objects to be looked at rather than agents who act. In 1975, a film theorist, Laura Mulvey, termed this the male gaze. The female lens of the world is often neglected, and women in movies were often portrayed as obedient to male control. A vast amount of early Disney movies showcases a young girl needing to be rescued by a Prince Charming to have a happily ever after. A few examples are Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. Although we now have movies such as Barbie, Legally Blonde that are feminist, these are only exceptions in the film industry. The reality is that the norm is still men being the directors. In recent studies by the USC Edinburgh Inclusion Initiative, women accounted for approximately 8% to 13.4% of directors. In the majority of movies, female characters are often portrayed as the love interest, the mother, and once a woman ages out of being desired, the monster. Horror has long turned aging women into symbols of decay, danger, or madness. The old woman as witch, as ghost, as the haunted thing. Whereas when men ages, we tend to say that he ages like fine wine. Aging is a horror almost reserved uniquely for women. Not only are women not allowed to age, they're also not allowed to be too thin, too fat, too muscular, too tall, and the list goes on. There are always harsher beauty requirements for women than for men. Beauty standards for women never stay still, yet women are pressured to follow them. Corsets, fit binding, the hourglass, the filtered face. In Asian countries, there's even a chart of ideal weight for women, and one who falls above the weight would be seen as fat and therefore undesirable. If we look at the patterns, the only constant here is that the beauty standard is always out of reach. While women's bodies are constantly displayed, marketed, and gazed upon in media, there is somehow always something wrong with women choosing how to dress and how to display themselves. For example, wearing a hijab is moralized as being overly conservative, and yet a woman who shows skin by her own choice risks being labeled as a slut and asking for it. It just shows that women are always being monitored and judged upon, and women would rarely make the right decisions for themselves. Language reinforces the power imbalance implicit in our society. The word mankind linguistically erases women from the category of the universal human. This may not tell much because the speaker rarely intends to exclude women when using this word. However, if we look at stronger words, such as insults are often lopsided, punishing women for men's behavior. Examples are son of a, and in Cantonese, lo mo. which literally translates to "fuck your mother." Now, even if the person saying these words don't actually mean to attack the person's mother, the harm is already done and is particularly hurtful for women. I'd also like to raise another example I realized myself. So in Chinese, female shop owner is often referred to as 老板娘, literally the boss's wife. Even when she herself owns the business outright, the language assumes that a woman's authority must be borrowed from a man. This is not even to say that the people using the language may themselves carry misogynistic attitudes. Young men are sometimes socialized to objectify women. For example, having a girlfriend is framed as an achievement, seeing the girl as something to show off to friends, a trophy, an evidence of status, for example. The language and media we use reflect and reinforce our values. And when that is misogynistic or oppressive to begin with, the cycle becomes hard to break. Scientists placed 5 monkeys in a cage with a ladder leading to a bunch of bananas. Whenever a monkey tried to climb the ladder, the scientists sprayed all the monkeys with ice-cold water. Eventually, the monkeys learned that climbing the ladder led to punishment, and they began beating up any monkey that attempted to climb it. The scientists then replaced the monkeys one by one. Even though the new monkeys had never been sprayed with water, they quickly learned to beat up anyone attempting to climb the ladder, simply because that's what the group before did. Eventually, all the original monkeys were replaced. Not a single monkey remaining in the cage knew why climbing the ladder was forbidden. But they all viciously stopped retried. When women are constantly being exposed to misogynistic media, they start to internalize it. This results in the continuation of oppressive practices even when the members of the oppressor group are not present. Internalized sexism is learned primarily during adolescence through socialization into gender-related practices. The time period between ages 11 to 14 has been identified as the most vulnerable period for girls around the world in terms of internalization of sexism. A girl might wear more stereotypically feminine clothing after learning that conforming to society's expectations of what she should wear leads to social and personal rewards. This process continues as young women face increasing amounts of pressure to conform to the norms of adult women. In this social experiment, when being asked to run, throw, or fight like a girl, the participants characteristically flailed their arms, acted weak, or made fun of themselves. They had absorbed the expectation that femininity and athletic competence were mutually exclusive. This is particularly harmful and frustrating to unlearn. Perhaps prose can better illustrate what internalized misogyny is. Do you have a man in your head, gazing at the world through your eyes, judging? Does he make you second-guess everything you do to simply exist? Does he tell you you aren't enough, you need to cover up more? Do you occupy too much space? Does he give you a list of things to do in order to please him? What angles you find sexy? What number on a scale is acceptable to him? How to protect your femininity? Does he watch you pretend to care about things you don't and ignore things you do? When I was 12, he watched me dry shave my legs and leave wet tissue papers all over cuts. When I was 15, he told me I wasn't like the other girls, that I was different, that I would continue to be different if I distanced myself from them. When I was 17, he watched me cry as I bled through my school uniform pants and told me I had to make sure nobody knew. When I was 19, he watched me go to bed hungry and work out for hours. He told me it was okay, he liked me better later. When I was 21, he told me I was disgusting and impure when a man forced himself on me. A passage from Michael Foucault writes, "He who is subjected to a field of visibility, and who knows it, assumes responsibility for the constraints of power. He makes them play spontaneously upon himself. He inscribes in himself the power relation in which he simultaneously plays both roles. He becomes the principle of his own subjection." Internalized misogyny manifests in a pick-me behavior, where women try to outcompete each other to be the most palatable to men at other women's expense. Snow White's story is an iconic example of women versus women, where the queen sees her stepdaughter, Snow White, as a rival. The queen's jealousy of Snow White's beauty reflects her own obsession with the patriarchal standards of youth and beauty. viewing beauty as the only determinant of one's worth. Girls are also socialized early into empathy, compliance, caretaking. Meanwhile, boys will be boys, functions as an accountability exemption for the other gender. Girls are taught restraint, modesty, and consequence from adolescence, while boys' sexual behavior is frequently treated as natural, expected, or even a rite of passage. However, if you ask a woman why she would do something that restricts herself, she might genuinely answer, I chose it. When the patriarchal order has been normalized and internalized, women think freedom means choosing who to marry, deciding which plastic surgery to undergo, when freedom perhaps means not feeling the pressure to marry at a certain age and not feeling pressured to adjust yourself to meet societal standards of beauty.
You are so beautiful and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough.
No country in the world can yet say that they have achieved gender equality.
Women, they have minds and they have souls as well as just hearts, and they've got ambition and they've got talent as well as just beauty. And I'm so sick of people saying that love is just all a woman is fit for. I'm so sick of it.
This video is just an attempt to talk about the patriarchy, and it's impossible to be exhaustive because there's so many lived experiences out there. Before I end this video, I'd like to address a final issue, which is, if patriarchy still affects us all, why is change so slow? First, those who benefit from the system don't really have the incentive to change. Second, when there is political will, change tends to require both soft power and hard power, both top-down change and bottom-up change. One without the other would hardly reform the system successfully. We've made undeniable progress. However, work still needs to be done in order to change the invisible oppressions that we are facing. If this video made you see something differently, or if you disagreed with part of it, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day or evening.